It's my pleasure to introduce Jim Nelson. Jim has been in Rotary and Minneapolis City of Lakes Rotary for 25 years as of next month. He was a past president in 2009 and between 2009 and 2010. He was district governor from 14 to 15 and the foundation chair from 2016 to 18. Jim practiced law for 43 years. Obviously, his Rotary classification was in law and real estate. He's been retired for 8 years, and since then has been involved in volunteer activities for the Minnesota Historical Society, City of Edina Human Rights Commission, Edina Community Foundation Board, Onward Eden Prairie, the Transitional Housing Board, many Rotary projects, and especially the Honduras efforts that he helped lead. Personally, he was born and raised in Breckenridge, Minnesota, married to Ellen, who is also Rotarian. He has 3 children and 6 grandchildren, and he has been a resident of Edina for more than 40 years. Please welcome Jim Nelson.
Thank you very much, Ross. Joyce's reflection, she said something that really hit home with me, which is that Rotary is a great place to meet good people and make good friends. And Kim Lorenz falls in that category for me. Kim is a good friend of mine. I met Kim in 2013 when 3 district Rotarians went to Honduras to look at some water projects. And since then we've participated in over $3 million worth of water projects in Honduras with World Vision. And Kim has been instrumental in being the liaison between Rotary and World Vision, which has matched our funds. And we really literally would not have been able to do that without Kim. He's a 40+ year Rotarian. His talk is not going to be about Rotary so much today, I don't think, but he is a entrepreneur who started 2 companies. He'll talk about that. By the time he was 26, within 20 years, he sold both companies to Fortune 500 companies, and since has been involved in a great amount of humanitarian work, philanthropic work, liaison with World Vision and Rotary, as I mentioned. The Rotary collaboration with World Vision has resulted in more than $60 million in projects, primarily water and sanitation hygiene projects. He earned his MBA from the University of Washington, and but he didn't take the normal route. He didn't do it before he started his business. He did it well after he started his business, and so he's here to talk about the principles of success for entrepreneurs. You can see his poster in the background here. His book is Tireless. It's a great read. It's available on Amazon. It's won several awards. Without further ado, Kim Lorenz.
Thank you, Jim. I'll just talk a little bit about the book to start off with, but it is endorsed by, excuse me, several global leaders. I saw some of you on the screen have sunshine in your eyes, and I'm looking here, it's still totally black outside, but I'm down in the Palm Springs area, so the weather here has been absolutely fabulous. But the book is really about entrepreneurialism, business success, but it covers all the aspects of life success, and there's several stories in it. The dean of the business school at the University of Washington read the book and called me, and he said, I read a book like this, I normally get a couple of really nuggets that stick with me, and this book, I've got over a dozen of them. So read it. I hope you'll enjoy it. Everyone so far has. It's all 5-star reviews. It's rated as excellent on Goodreads. But I'm just going to cover a few of the stories that are in it. Somebody has the slides, I think, that they can post up here. That was
I can do that if you'd like.
Probably best just to go ahead and I'll just talk through the slides as we're looking at them, and it'll kind of give you, they've got a little bit of background stuff on it. And who said that? Brock? Oh, that's Brock. Okay.
That's Brock.
Just you. Yeah, there's the president of Starbucks, president of Alaska Airlines, the chairman of the board of Deloitte, the vice chair, some university presidents. But go to the next screen. Thank you. I'm just gonna, I don't read PowerPoints. When somebody does that in a presentation, it drives me nuts. But there's a comment here on the left side. Rich Stearns was the president of World Vision when I wrote the book. He's since retired. But when he talks about people changing the world, I look at Jim Nelson and some other past district governors in your district are doing the same thing every day. But as just to touch on what we've done between World Vision and Rotary and that work over the last 22 years, World Vision has 47,000 staff in 100 countries. And I was just off in the chat room with one of the other members saying how difficult it's been to close, excuse me, a project that he's been working on for many years. And I think that's the biggest advantage we bring is the accounting, the handling of the funds, the reporting, and finishing up on these projects. But the way I got into this was I'm a major donor to World Vision and I'm a major donor to Rotary. And so I'd gotten to know Rich. I'd go down there and use the boardroom and raise money for microfinance and economic development. And so Rich called me up one day and he said, hey, we've got the chairman of the Rotary Foundation coming to meet with us and they're interested in what we might be able to do together. You're the only person I know that's involved with both World Vision and Rotary. Will you come to the meeting? So I was just a normal guy, like you guys, just a Rotarian. I was keeping myself very busy. It was back around 2001. And I go to this meeting. The next thing I know, I'm on a jet going to Ethiopia, and they want to see if there's a way to work together. And when you read the book and you look at opportunity, and that's what most of the book is about, how to see opportunity. We had a meeting in California during the Los Angeles convention from TRL, the Rotary RI convention, and the president of World Vision said, you know, this ought to be fun for you, Kim, because World Vision makes really bad partners. And at that time, the head employee of the Rotary Foundation, John Osterland, said the same thing. He said, Kim, Rotary doesn't partner very well. And both of them have gone out of their way to try to prove that to be true. And Jim, I know the day when you were finalizing getting this project off the ground, you said you just wanted to quit. It just gets so tough sometimes, but tough people stick it out and they make it a success. And Jim did that. So I've had the opportunity to work with your district, Jim Nelson, PDG, Tim Murphy, Lloyd, and others. And Sandy Schley actually started in Uganda with a project with Sandy Schley, and that was 20 some odd years ago. But so go ahead and you can change the screen. So when we look at what we do in life and we look in Rotary, the book isn't just about business opportunities. The publisher said you really need to narrow it down and choose a topic that will get people interested in buying the book, but it's a lot more than just business. It's life habits. I speak often at Rotary clubs, and I know in one of the introductions said the book should be called How to Have Ethics and Integrity and whatnot. So I hope you will read it. But in life and in our Rotary lives, there's opportunities every single day. They're all around us. And so many people aren't really looking for them. And they don't see it. They're not aware that they're there. And so the book is getting into thinking outside the box and a lot of things on how to find opportunity. And then you'll see at the bottom of the screen, the 4 stages of life: wonder, blunder, thunder, and plunder. There's a chapter on this. But if you think about it, Rotarians generally have always made it to the thunder stage and on to plunder. But a lot of people never get out of the blunder. They never thunder in their lives. But in Rotary, say when you get into something in Rotary, you join a club, you're kind of wondering what it's like. Or even when you're growing up, you wonder what your life's going to be like, what you're going to do for the rest of your life. You get your first job, you blunder a little bit. And if you're good and you persevere, you'll thunder. And then the plunder stage isn't really as it sounds. Bill Gates is in his plundering years for a long time now. It's those of us, and many of us that are Rotarians, that have decided to give something back to the world, and service above self, as we say. So my plundering stages have been now going to Africa. Next month it'll be Zambia and Zimbabwe, and I've gone over 50 times to these projects. I go before they start, I go when they're running, I go afterwards. And Jim knows, he's been to Honduras now many times, and we're starting our 5th project in Honduras, and 5950 Rotarians have done 2 of those projects, so thank you very much. So go ahead and you can change the screen. I'm just covering some of the things that are in the book and a few of the chapters, but so you have choices to make every day. You have decisions. There's over 35,000 decisions on a daily basis that you make. And many of those are subconscious. They're not requiring thought. But of those 35,000, I think just what you're going to eat is around 400 decisions every day. Walking is a good example of, you don't think about it. You just do it automatically. When you were young and you learned how to walk, you had to think through every step, but you don't think about it. But you make decisions. Do you take an escalator? Do you take the set of stairs going up? Do you want to do this, do that? Are you going to get off your rear end and exercise, or sit there and watch TV? You have all these decisions. They're choices. And it's so important to make the right choice and then develop the habits. And we'll get into that in a few different slides down the way here. But self-talk, we all say to ourselves on an average 50,000 words a day. And you cannot not have a reaction or self-talk to yourself. And let me give you an example. Say Jim was sitting here wearing a tie and we were in a meeting, and I said, geez, Jim, I really like that tie you're wearing. I remember when that used to be in style. And so, you might laugh, Jim would laugh. But the next time he goes to his wardrobe to see what he's going to wear that day, and he sees that tie, the thoughts he has of me might not be the friendliest. But the point is, you cannot not have a reaction, but you can listen to your self-talk. And when you see it going negative, and this will be again coming up in a couple of slides, you have the ability to change the narrative of your self-talk, to recognize what it is you're talking about, and then how that leads into the habits for the rest of your life. Go ahead and change the slide. So habits and follow-up, and I just have a short story here on the follow-up part. But when I first started in my career, the book name is Tireless, and some people pick up on the idea that I started what is today the largest commercial tire company in all the Northwest United States. There's thousands of employees now. It's all over Alaska and Washington, Oregon, Idaho, and into California. But I started it by myself or with another guy, the 2 of us, with no, borrowing money on our homes and starting this little teeny enterprise that was, we hoped we could do something with it. But the reason I did is the 65-year-old company that I started my career in looked like it was going to go bankrupt, and they did. A couple of years later, they were bankrupt, and there wasn't anybody in that industry that I respected or wanted to work for. But let me just tell you a story. Many of you are related to sales in some way or another. Everybody in every company is involved in one way or another in sales and how you handle phones or almost anything. But in the tire business, commercial tire business, on average, it took 5 to 7 calls. This is a statistic. 5 to 7 calls before you would make a sale. 5 to 7 times you call on somebody before you'll make a sale. It's a statistic. And I believed in it. And so I started working for this company, and the older gentlemen that had been there 125 years and 130 years and whatnot would tell me often, oh, don't bother with this company. Oh, this company will never buy from you. Oh, don't waste your time with this company. And many of you, if you're around sales, you've got salespeople that are like that. Well, I didn't believe it. I really felt that there was a law of averages here. And if I was an okay person and people were interested in what I had to sell, that I could eventually get the business. So I was calling on a large company in the Seattle area. And the man who handled all the purchasing would be sitting at a desk. He'd hardly ever even give you eye contact. And he'd say, oh, it's all handled in California. All the purchasing decisions are handled in California at the corporate office. So I asked him, would you give me that person's name and phone number? And he scribbled it down on a piece of paper and handed it to me. And okay, see you, kid. And I'm like 23 years old, starting my new career. And I go back a month later. I wrote a letter. The habit I got into is I never started my vehicle without writing down what I was going to do next. So I went down, I'm going to send a letter. I'm going to go back here in a month. I'm going to make a phone call. I'm going to go back here in a month. Well, this goes on for 12 months. And one day I got a call, after 12 calls with this customer. We didn't have cell phones then, but I got a radio. We had two-way radio in our vehicles, that this Howard wanted to see me right away. So I race up there and he said, we've made the decision, we're going to do business with you. I got the account, this one that I was told we'd never ever have. So after a few months, everything's going fine. It's a huge account, takes a lot of follow-up, a lot of work. And I said to Howard, Howard, what made you guys decide you wanted to do business with me? And again, this man hardly ever made eye contact. He was busy, had his head down doing paperwork at his desk, and he just stopped and he turned around. He opened up his drawer on his desk and he took out a stack of business cards well over an inch thick, and he handed them to me. And here's the names of all my competitors, all the salespeople that work for the company I work for. He said, every one of these people called on me. I told them all the same thing. He says, Kim, I actually make the decisions right here. And he said, but it always worked. Nobody would come back except for you. He says, and then you kept calling my boss. And I was talking to him a few months ago, and it was kind of a joke. And he says, you know, if you don't start doing business with that young guy, I'm going to fire you because he keeps sending me letters and calling me all the time. So I ended up getting the account. But it's the habit that you develop in your subconscious and the follow-up. And follow-up isn't just in sales calls, it's in your private life, your Rotary life, doing what you say you're going to do, and just develop those habits. And that's part of your integrity. Go ahead and move to the next slide. So I mentioned before, you can control your negative thought. It's a lot more than just that. You have this self-talk. When you recognize you're around a negative person, when you recognize you're thinking a negative thought, think of how you can make lemonade out of lemons, so to speak. But how do you turn positive, or how do you start consciously working yourself away from the people and the things that are negative? Even on TV, if it's constantly negative, change the narrative, change the channel. But learn in your self-talk to start thinking positive, and you'll start opening up your eyes to opportunities to follow up on that and come to something positive. I was actually on my way to World Vision's office one morning in 2006 when I decided I was going to quit doing this work. I just couldn't make it happen. Jim, I was in the same position you were in, where you darn near threw the towel in on your Honduras project. And I got a call from Tim Murphy. He said the Rotary Foundation just approved our project. And I happen to be a religious person, and I thought, okay, somebody's sending me a sign that I'm not going to quit today. I'm going to go to Honduras and make this the best project ever. And I did. But it was that follow-up. It was Tim's follow-up. It was Jim's follow-up. It was Steve's follow-up, who did another project with your district in Honduras. So go ahead and go to the next slide. I'm almost done here, and I'll have it open for questions. But you make the choices. Nobody else makes it for you. It's you. And when you get in that decision that you are always going to develop those habits, you're going to follow through, you're going to make yourself a note. Now we do it all on our phones and our computers, and we've got our schedules out there to follow up. Somebody mentioned something to you, to follow it up. Go to the next slide, and I'll kind of try to tie this together. Yeah, it'll be the slide after this, but this one here, everyone knows this quote: if you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. And so again, we're taking it from the negative side to the positive side. Always develop the habit to think that you can, and don't stop unless you run into that insurmountable brick wall. that doesn't allow you to do something and even then try to get through it. And the book is full of stories. It's not my stories, but stories about people who have succeeded under great odds. There's a chapter on banking. There's a chapter. I own my own company. It's easy to say that now, but boy, I tell you, there was a lot of times that we didn't know if we'd make it to the next day when the bank called our note on us, and I thought we were out of business, and how we persevered through that. And it's a good read that'll touch you in many ways in your personal life as well as business. And go ahead to the next slide. So another company, I mentioned the tire company. You can't hardly drive a vehicle down the road without seeing a Kenworth truck or a Peterbilt truck. One of the largest truck manufacturers in the world is called PACCAR. It's Pacific Car and Foundry, which also were the people that made the steel on the outside of the trade towers in New York City that got taken down by the airplanes. But so this huge Fortune 500 company is headquartered near Seattle, and they had one of their factories in Seattle. And when you see a big Kenworth truck, there's over 300 different tire sizes and widths and tread designs and compounds that can be specified when you buy a Kenworth truck. There's well over 300 wheels. There's 8-hole wheels, 10-hole wheels, mounted wheels, stud piloted wheels, aluminum wheels that are polished for the front of the vehicle, aluminum that are polished for the back, aluminum that are polished on both sides, aluminum that aren't polished at all. There's 19.5, 22.5, 24.5 inch. When you take all the sizes and differences, there's over 300 wheels. I had this little fledgling tire company in Seattle. I told you we started with just 2 of us, and we had people that would go into their factory to do mounting on large trucks that were going to be working in the oil fields in Saudi Arabia and whatnot, that their people couldn't do. But every other week we'd get a call, do you have this particular tire? And we'd sell them a Michelin tire. And then a couple of weeks later, they'd give us another one back to write a credit on it. And so I just asked why do they do this? It's a big Fortune 500 company. Well, is anybody here familiar with Dr. Deming and the success after World War II, the rise of Toyota as the international automotive? A lot of that was done after World War II by a guy named Deming, teaching them just in time inventories and quality control. And so I went to meet with them, and I just saw what they were doing was ridiculous. They weren't partnering with their suppliers. They were making decisions in a stovepipe where they're only looking internally, costing their suppliers a great amount of money, but they were introducing errors into their manufacturing process. So they're doing 40 trucks a day, that's 400 tires a day, and every 2 weeks, one of the tires was wrong. And they'd have to grab one from us. The truck would come off the assembly line with 9 tires on it instead of 10, and they'd have to park it someplace. They'd have to put a requisition to buy a tire from us. They'd have to bring a tire back. They'd have to write a credit. I mean, you can just see all this paperwork. And so I looked at it and said, this is absolutely insane. And so I came up with a better way to do it. It took 2 years to get it implemented, but we started the company called JIT Inc. just in time. And that ended up going global and was bought by Alcoa. But here's a Fortune 500 company, and you'd think, they know what they're doing. The CEO was the Fortune 500 CEO of the year. Right around that time, very sharp individual named Mark. But I just something I thought, and I never gave up. I went to some of their other factories, and I did a lot of research. It took 2 years. So that's how we started JIT Inc. I think that was my last slide. See what the next one says. I think it's a pretty picture of the book. Writing the book's another follow-up and habit where people told me many years, write a book. I had a file. I used to run our sales meetings. I had all these motivational quotes and things, and you need to write a book. You need to write a book. And so I finally sat down one day and figured out there was 72 things I could write chapters on. The book has 27. And then in the book, there's a chapter 26, I think, on giving back. And that's our plunder stage of life. And my giving back happens to be with Rotary. I was president of my club in 1990. I've done all the different things within our club offices. But doing this work with World Vision and Rotary has been very fulfilling. Met some great people. I have friends all over the world. I bring many of the people into the U.S. Rotary conventions so they can attend them. And Jim has been in our meetings where we have people from Niger and Ethiopia and Uganda and Honduras at the international conventions for meetings. So with that, I hope you enjoyed the book and send me a note and let me know what you think about it. But I'll open it up for any questions.
Do we have any questions from folks? Feel free to unmute yourself or raise your hand or throw a question in the chat. I'll ask one. Kim, you talk about your book is Tireless, and obviously they got the tire company background. There seems to be an epidemic of people who talk all the time about how tired they are. And boy, I'm tired. I've worked so hard. I shuffle the kids back and forth. My boss is constantly calling about everything. In the book, do you talk about kind of, and you talked even about, with some of the work with, World Vision stuff, you get to a point where you feel like you've hit a brick wall. You feel like I can't take this next step. What do you recommend for people when they're in that position of feeling so tired? How do they become more tireless?
Well, you can start by drinking more water. But I don't know. It's just really, again, it's in the habit and the subconscious. I'm a pilot. I have a pilot's license. I've been flying for many years. We had planes in our company. Many of our customers didn't have roads to them in the mines and all over Alaska. I still fly. But the point is, I've had a lot of things I wanted to do, and a lot of people just never get off their butt and do it. Jim's a good example. Jim went down to a project we're doing in Honduras, and it's a lot of work. And I mentioned to him, Jim, there's an opportunity to do another one. This Rotary Club really wants to do another project, and Jim could have said, "Oh yeah, no, I know," but he didn't. He made the decision, I'm going to do it. And he got off his rear end and did it. And the more you stay busy, the more you stay engaged, the more you reach out, the more you strive to get to another level, you're not tired. And that's where the name came from. I actually, I have a large yacht, and I was having a yacht built in Taiwan that was going to be shipped over to the US. And I was sitting in my MBA class at the University of Washington with a genius next to me who now owns a big international company. And I said, boy, we have this yacht being made and we're trying to come up with a name. And this guy he went, Tireless. I said, what? He says, doesn't have tires on it. You sold the tire company and you're full of energy. And I just laughed, and I went home and I told my wife, I said, hey, my friend came up with a name for the boat, Tireless. And my wife was like, what? We're thinking of a French name or Della V or something that's, got Italian in it. And about 2 a.m, my wife wakes up. She says, I kind of like that. But you have that ability in the choices you make to do nothing or do something. And if you just write it down, what are the things you want to do in your life? What are some of the opportunities that maybe you've heard about that you haven't followed up on? To just do it. That's the Nike quote. I think it's in the book too, and all the acknowledgments. There's no plagiarism in the boat. Boy, we spent a lot of time with editors and making sure everything we said was, but it's thinking outside the box. So Brock, that's all I can say is just, if you've wanted to fly, get off your rear end and go down and put $1,000 down at your local flight school, and they'll take you up for a flight, usually free for the first one. And if you want to do it, get in there and fly. If you want to do something else, get in and do it. In Rotary, there's thousands of opportunities to do things locally, in the club, your local service, international service. Just do it. Just get off and do it. That's all I can say. I just never stop. And someday something will stop me when none of us are getting out of here alive. But
excellent. Thank you.
I can interject that if I'm sitting in my office at 8 o'clock in the morning, I don't hesitate to call Kim Lorenz, even though it's only 6 o'clock out there, because he's up. The only time I ever called him and he sounded tired, and I thought, God, did I call him too early? It was 6:30 or something in the morning, and he sounded, Kim, did I wake you up? And he said, No, I just had surgery yesterday.
I've had too many of those.
Any other questions from the group?
Jim or
Yeah.
Kim? John Vandermight here. I want to preface it just a little bit because my youngest son was having his 50th birthday, and his son, my grandson, asked him, Dad, do you have any regrets?
Hmm.
And he was quiet for a minute. He said, Yeah, I wished I'd learned to play the guitar. So, Kim, do you have any regrets?
Let me start by saying, one, I've got cancer, which I've had now for about 3 years. And so I had a lot of time to kind of ponder this. And I'll say in one respect, no, I'm just tickled. I've done everything I've ever wanted to do. And when the time comes and I'm not going to be here anymore, I'm comfortable with that, and I'm comfortable with where I'm going. But I haven't learned Spanish, but I bought that Babbel app, so I'm learning Spanish, and I've got a 14-hour flight coming up to go to Doha next month, and I find time on the airplane to get things done. That's how I got my ship captain's license, was doing it on my long flight. So just utilize the time. I've got 3 children, 7 grandchildren, great family. All the kids, our 3 kids, your youngest is 50, my oldest is 46. But they're all very successful, and so I'm just tickled with the way things are going in my life. But the Spanish, and then my piano lessons never went anywhere. I'm always amazed when I see people playing the piano or the guitar and the amount of talent that takes. And
Well, Kim, our time is up.
all right.
And I really appreciate your taking the time with us. In lieu of our usual lavish honorarium this year, we are donating a book in your name to an organization here in town called Way to Grow, which helps at-risk kids. And these books are very often the first book a third grader has ever owned. And so we ask our community leaders who are speakers to sign the book, and then we give it to Way to Grow. So next time we're in Honduras, which I hope is this year, I'm going to bring a book along and have you sign it, and then I'll bring it back, and we'll get it to Way to Grow. But thank you so much for your participation. It's early in the morning out there still, but there he is.
Thanks,
So,
Jim.
thanks
And
a
what
lot.
a great Zoom. You guys really ran a great meeting. I've never seen one where you can go off the chat rooms and do all that. So very well run. Thank you.
Yeah, we have a lot of fun. Thanks. I'll turn it back to Russ.
All right. Thanks, Jim, and thanks, Kim. Great talk. I did buy your book when you were talking, so on Amazon. But I also want to thank our greeter, Mark Mosman, Reflection, Joyce Agnew, very appropriate for Valentine's Day. Thank you. Our Zoom master, Brock. I'm going to share my screen one last time. So next week we will be in person, so no Zoom. So please show up. Carol Brito and Sophia Dart are there to speak about their experiences as Rotary Exchange students, and Mary Pat and Jennifer Van Wyck will help us host a baby shower for Anna Presicari. So please come and join us. It should be a blast. And then on the 28th, Pete Gordon, John Donaldson. So he basically is a Negro League historian and the founder of the Donaldson Network. So that should be a really exciting talk about the history of baseball and the Negro League. So please join us in person those 2 days. With that, go out and have a wonderful Valentine's Day and Rotary Week. Thank you all.